And our first album of the week, Matt, is it yours that you
No,
get
It
the
is
first
not.
segment? It's
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 fine.
Josh. Okay, I'm
Yep,
sorry, Josh. The floor is yours.
no problem. It's Prefab Sprout, Jordan the Comeback, released August 28th, 1990. In the opening montage, you heard Looking for Atlantis, and now you're going to hear Machine Gun Ibiza, or Machine Gun Ibiza, if you're going to this, this album.
Yeah, so Jordan the Comeback by Prefab Sprout comes in at number 370 in the 1990s on Best Ever Albums, number 29 in 1990, number 2006 of all time. It is Prefab Sprout's second highest rated album behind 1985's Steve McQueen, which we covered last season. And none of these albums tonight made Rolling Stone's list, and Prefab Sprout is ranked number 341 of overall artist rankings on Best Ever Albums.
All right, yeah, like Matt said, we covered them last season on season 3, episode 17. I did a full bio when we covered Steve McQueen, the album from 1985. So check that out if you want a more broad overview of the band. They are from County Durham, which is in northeast England. They formed in 1978. It is the same personnel as when we covered Steve McQueen. Paddy McAloon, he's kind of the driving force of the band and pretty much the band at this point in 2023. He's also the sole songwriter for the band, and he's on vocals and guitar. His brother Martin McAloon is on bass. Wendy Smith is on vocals, guitars and keyboards, and Neil Conti is on drums. And Thomas Dolby is the producer once again. He produced Steve McQueen. Then they had a
Science!
exactly. They released another album after Steve McQueen that Dolby didn't produce, but then he came back for this. They are classified as pop, sophistopop, art rock, new wave, and even indie rock and college rock. This is their 5th studio album, and they have 10 total albums, with their most recent release from 2013 titled Crimson/Red. Paddy McAloon has cited his early influences as T-Rex, Free, The Who, and the Beatles. Also the classy, the pop songs of Burt Bacharach and Hal David, and Broadway melodies and tunes like Stephen Sondheim from Stephen Sondheim musicals. They are similar to many other British bands that we've talked about. Talk Talk, the Go-Betweens, Squeeze, the Waterboys, Orange Juice, XTC, Haircut 100, and the Blue Nile. And from what I can tell, they never made much of an impact in America and never really charted on the Billboard charts for singles. Steve McQueen did reach 178 on the Billboard 200 when it was released. They were popular in the UK though. Their highest charting UK single is King of Rock and Roll off their 1988 album From Langley Park to Memphis, which is the album before this. And their highest charting single is I'm sorry. Their highest charting album is the 1997 album Andromeda Heights, and this album in the UK, they both reached number 7 on the charts. Some fun facts about the band. Paddy McAloon divided this album thematically into 4 segments. I don't know if you guys picked up on that. There's a first section straight pop material, then there's a suite about Elvis Presley, there's some love song section, and then there's a section about death and fate. McAloon considered Dolby's contribution on this album so great that he considered him a de facto member of the band. The band never really toured much at all, and they never toured in America. And the band name was made up by McAloon when he was 13, and it doesn't mean anything. He just put 2 words together that he thought sounded good. And in the early 2000s, McAloon was diagnosed with a medical condition that severely impaired his vision, and then later on his hearing has also deteriorated due to Meniere's disease, which is a disease of the inner ear that causes episodes of severe and incapacitating vertigo, tinnitus, hearing loss, and a feeling of fullness in the ear, which sounds awful because I can't even handle water in my ears. And in a 2013 interview, McAloon has said that with his health issues, the way they are, it dictates the way in which Prefab Sprout music has been recorded, making it impractical and even impossible for any other musicians to be involved, but that he remained fond and grateful to his former bandmates. So at this point in his life, he is still alive, Paddy McAloon, but he is Prefab Sprout himself at this point. And so I don't know of any recent releases. I think he released a few songs on the internet maybe at one point, but they are technically still a band. And so that is that. So Steve McQueen, I remember this is one of our more spirited discussions when we talked about Steve McQueen. So John, what did you think this time around?
I was a big fan of this album, just like I was of Steve McQueen, and I'm starting to think that I am officially on the Prefab Sprout bandwagon. I'll put the one complaint I had about the album first before I talk about the rest of it, which is I think it was a little long. I don't know if it needed to be at the hour mark. I didn't pick up on exactly those 4 chapters, right, Josh, of theme, but I definitely picked up on the themes of the album, and some of those things you mentioned as subchapters clearly stood out. It's like, yeah, that's not hard to figure out from the lyrics. And I do want to go to, there's a lot to like about this album, but one of the things I really like is the lyrics are excellent on this album, just like they were on Steve McQueen. I think my friend Patty is an excellent lyric writer, and I just connected with a lot of the things he was writing about. As you joked around before, I even liked how his pronunciation of Ibiza was the vosotros tense of it to go full Spanish along the way. But that was a standout song. The songs Machine Gun Ibiza and Jordan the Comeback. I liked both Jesse James Symphony and the Bolero. Where this album brought me in, that go-betweens analogy is a really good one, Josh, that you mentioned before, because there was a lot about that Go-Betweens album, and they were an Australian band if I remember, and this album that had that solid lyrics with catchy hooks, atypical hooks though, like pop hooks, but not in the way that you always thought that they would go. This had elements of, yeah, like you said, the Sophistopop was there. It's a great night album. It's also a great early morning album, like a come down album as well. So those things stood out right off the bat. I think my takeaway, though, is the fact that there were so many different types of music and instruments and sounds on this album. And we it's something that we bring up a lot when we cover albums, but when we can get to an album that really delves into a variety of genres, that is something that has begun to stand out for me, because so many albums we listen to, like the Black Crowes last week, right? They do the thing they do really well, but it's the thing they do. And so I've come to appreciate groups that write a variety of songs that I enjoy and appreciate that come from different angles on the same album. And do you remember probably about 2 months ago, I guess, and Josh, you and I covered it. There was the band that had the cult following, and they had released something like 100 albums along the way, and each one was a little bit different. And I was trying to remember, and it is completely escaping me right now. But the album was from the late '80s, and I'll look it up in a second. But they were a band that sort of every single album they covered was a different sonicscape, and that, I think, my takeaway on this album is just how much, and I'm sorry I'm not drawing the reference. I'm going to kind of dig back in a little bit to bring up the reference so I can draw it distinctly. But that is kind of what stood out to me, was that every time I listened to this album 3 times, even though it was an hour. So that should tell you how much I liked it. But every time I listened to it, I got something new from it, and I had gained a greater appreciation. But at the end of the day, it was really the sound with the lyrics that stuck with me. I have more to say, but I don't want to step on either of your toes. And this is also one where I have thoughts of how you guys are going to feel about this album, but I can't say for sure that I know. So
I think you're thinking of the Mekons.
The Mekons. There you go. Mekons Rock and Roll. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, and that, remember how it was like a whole bunch of different songs on that album?
Yeah.
Variety. I got the same, even though this album doesn't sound like that album, right. I got the same feel as I was listening to it. I was like, ooh, you know, like it kept me off balance, but in a good way. So, Matt, my guess would be that you would like this album, but maybe I'm wrong.
You are wrong.
Okay.
Unfortunately, yeah. I would say that this is a lot long for me. And
Okay.
this was just this out. Honestly, this was kind of a slog for me to get through. I think it starts off strong, and it's interesting that the different parts. Like I like the first part of the record, for the most part, the pop part. Does that stop it? I like the first four. Carnival 2000's okay. It starts to lose me at the Oh, maybe it's just the Jesse James part is where I start to fall. It starts to go.
Yeah, that's
downhill
when
for
the
me.
Elvis part starts.
Okay, I'm certainly not a fan of that. And
6
then
through 9.
All the World Loves Lovers, the boys believe in anything, the
Yeah.
Aerosmith Wedding March. Like it's just, I really had a hard time grasping onto something here. I'm sure the lyrics are good, but that's not why I'm listening. Musically, it just didn't move me really at all. It just was kind of like. It to me, honestly, it was kind of boring, and it was just I just couldn't. I listened to it at different times of the day. I listened to it in different ways, and it just it's not like I was hating it. I was just like, man, this is just it's just not connecting with me basically. Like I think you're probably right, John. I mean, there is variety here, but I think just
almost like a musical at times. It felt like.
It definitely, and that's referenced in the
Okay.
information I found as well.
It just, and so I don't know, man. This is just one of those records where like if I can't latch on, like there weren't really any hooks here that really moved me. Even the stuff that I liked, like the first couple songs, or I did like Machine Gun Ibiza. That was Ibiza. I was saying that too. Scarlet Night's actually towards the end. That's kind of like a little bit upbeat.
I like that song too.
But by the time I got to that, I was just so drained. Actually, I that's probably a good word. I was just drained listening to this album because I just kept waiting for something else to happen. And then once my opinion started to form, like the next song would just reinforce it, which made me not really want to. I probably listened to this 3 times too, and that's way more than I would have listened to if I just was on its own. Like I don't think I would have gotten through this album once the whole way through if I was just listening to it on my own. So it's just, I can't, it's not for me. Unfortunately I remember kind of being mixed on their previous record too. I think I liked the beginning. I think that they had more upbeat stuff towards the beginning of that record, and then it kind of went into a different direction. So I think I like my Prefab Sprout a little poppier, a little more upbeat, but the majority of this record I did not find in that vein. So it left me falling a little flat for me. So yeah, I'm a thumbs down, unfortunately, for this record.
I'm gonna split the difference. I think I'm a slight thumbs up on this. I think I like Steve McQueen more in retrospect. This album is very ambitious, I would say, in terms of just having the different sections of the album and being thematically consistent, and like John said, having a wide variety of genres in here. You've kind of got some samba and kind of Caribbean feeling type of music. You have some implementation of electronic styles, and then more like musical sounding songs like the Wedding March in the kind of back end of it, and more, well, there's a bolero sounding song in Jesse James Bolero as well. So a lot of like offbeat kind of things that we don't hear too much on the show. And I agree with you, Matt. I think I was more into it in the front half, probably, especially kind of the songs that weren't thematically linked, just being kind of pop songs. This Sophista-pop sound, this is kind of like a hallmark, and this is what I'm going to think of when I think of Sophista-pop. It's kind of got this real like groove to it, and this real relaxed like I'm on a vacation type feel to it. It's like a band that plays at a resort or something. And
then bass lines will sneak up and catch you. Like that ABC album was another one where there's all of a sudden these like tasty bass lines, and then it becomes atmospheric.
And
Yeah.
and I was mixed on that ABC album too, but that is a good comparison. I think some of it works for me. It's kind of, I don't know, it's this weird like European vibe to it that doesn't always work. But again, I like Machine Gun Ibiza and Looking for Atlantis and even Carnival 2000. So I think there was enough here that carried me through, and every section had at least like one song that I liked a lot. But I think I guess to contrast too, it is long. It is almost like too ambitious for me in one album. And I feel like there is kind of a formula in the music that I picked up on, like a lot of repetition of the title of the track, for example, kind of came up over and over again. There's a real like relaxed feel to it that didn't kind of wore on me. So I'm kind of like either or on this one. There's parts I liked about it, but there's not enough here that I would be like, Prefab Sprout's a hidden gem or something like that. I think they're interesting. They're very singular. I can see why like they would not make a dent in America. They're kind of like very unique in that respect.
Yes, no, they don't. Yeah, they don't really operate in an American lens. They, as you said, they're very European.
Yeah.
It seems like insensibility.
Yep. And those other bands I name checked, I think I liked more. But still, I mean, the fact that we're covering them twice and I never heard of them before, and so I'll give this a slight thumbs up, but not like totally won over.
I think I liked some of the moodier stuff like Mercy and the Ice Maiden a little bit more than you guys did too. And I think some of that is because I got a real romantic vibe from this. And once again, I think it goes back to, as a lyric writer, he writes, I thought, really strong lyrics, really good, solid romantic lyrics. And so at times it resembled poetry or just really strong prose. And that is what took the album, I think, from where you were at, Josh, which would probably be my musical evaluation of it, and moved it into something slightly above where it becomes a more comfortable thumbs up for me. That last piece. And that makes sense as to why I think Matt heard the music maybe less than me and you did. And then with him the lyrics not being as big a piece for him and that being, to me, the strongest part of it, I think it very much explains our difference of opinion here.
And the music, like, I can like stuff that sounds like this, like kind of like the sophistopop kind of night, electronic kind of stuff. Like I'm thinking about something like Avalon by Roxy Music, or I like the Blue Nile. I don't think it was an amazing album, but I could definitely listen to that multiple times. Like there was something, somewhat comforting about that record. This one just was lying flat. I couldn't really get into this, and it was
the
long.
length was a barrier.
Yeah,
that was as I said at the beginning, that was the one thing I would say that I don't know if you need all minute. Was it hour and 2 minutes? Was that what it came in at? I don't know if you
19 need songs. It's also the amount of songs. That's they're short, but that's a lot.
And I think that I probably would have made this no longer than 50 minutes, and even that would be pushing it. But I'm starting to get a little bit of a bias toward ideal album length. Like if you're going to go over 45 minutes, to me, you better really have something to say. So.
We don't really encounter albums that kind of have distinct sections in them that aren't like a total concept album, and I feel like there's just like too much concept in one album.
Well, we did a lot in the 70s. That was like
Prague.
Peak period for those things where it's like this is.
Yeah, but it's not like the fourth section of this album or the stuff where they're talking about where he's like voicing God and like the song about Lucifer, the fallen angel and everything. Like that doesn't tie back to the first section at all. It's just very like separated and segmented.
Well, those songs though lyrically are similar, but it's not like not like bringing it all together to the album itself, right?
Correct.
Like if you see Jordan the Comeback, is it like who is Jordan? Where's he coming back from? It doesn't play in like that concept album. It's almost like they're like this is the single,
right?
And it's like referring to when like Jordan came back out of retirement and started playing a volleyball game, like being prophetic.
I don't think at all. Nothing at all. First of all, because that was like five,
future.
like 5 years
It
later.
would have
So
been-
yeah,
That's what I'm saying. It was prophetic. They saw it coming, so Patty was a prophet.
Yeah, it's like I can respect somebody that kind of digs deep, because the Elvis section is kind of pretty buried. You wouldn't really know it was Elvis unless you were like really paying attention. And the Jesse James stuff is about Jesse James, but it's like if he hadn't died. And so I guess I agree with you, John, that like I feel like the lyrics and kind of the depth is there, but just all of it together didn't kind of work for me totally.
got it. So it sounds like thumbs up, slight thumbs up, thumbs down. Is that a good analysis right there?
I think so.
Yep, I think so.